Hey guys, Richard Blaine here. Thanks for stopping by my Mr. Easy Knife channel tonight. I know many of you are accustomed to me cooking, but this is my new channel, Mr. Easy Knife, Knife and Gear Reviews. And this is my first video for the new channel. And I want to welcome you. I want to thank you for stopping by. Tonight I'm going to be reviewing a quintessential one-handed tactical folder. Tonight I'm going to be reviewing the Ernest Emerson CQC7. I'm going to be discussing a little bit of its history, a little bit of its creation, a little bit of its background, okay? This, in my opinion, is one of the quintessential knives in the one-handed tactical folder market. Prior to the Emerson CQC7, okay, one-handed folders were fairly straightforward and simple, and the Emerson is very simple, but with the creation of this CQC7 model for the civilian market, it changed the look, the feel, the direction of the tactical one-hand folder. It changed it for forever. And for that, I attribute it to Ernest Emerson. So tonight, my first review on this new channel, Mr. Easy Knife, is going to be on this knife, the Emerson CQC7, and I'm going to reference some other knives like the Cqc6 and talk about some differences. And like I say on my cooking channel, usually with YouTube, 15 minutes, let's get going and I'll see you on the other side. But I know I got longer than 15 minutes on this channel to do this. So let's get going and I'll see you in a couple of minutes. All right, guys, so let's start the review, okay? This is a modern day CQC7. And the only reason that I'm showing you a modern everyday CQC7 is because I don't happen to have a Benchmade 970 on hand in my collection. But they're both pretty close. There are some differences, and I thought I would cover that, okay? So let's go back in time, okay? The original Benchmade 970 Specwar, okay? Cqc7. That's how the knife was labeled on the back of the blade at Benchmade, okay? That knife was produced around 1994, okay, by Benchmade Knives, okay? The Cqc7, this knife, was a production variant of Emerson's original Cqc6, okay? The Cqc6 was a handmade folder that he made per order for people like Navy SEALs and German GSG-9 and other military units, okay? The Cqc6 was the first folding fighting knife designed with the Navy SEALs first and foremost in mind, okay? The original Cqc6 had a true zero ground blade, whereas this Cqc7 does not. People call it a chisel ground blade. Ernest Emerson calls it a chisel ground blade, but this blade on the Cqc7 is not a full zero grind, nor is it a full hamaguri grind, such as on this Yanagi, okay? But he deemed it a chisel ground blade, okay? But that was on the Cqc6, okay? You can also call a zero ground blade a saber, you know, a knife like this Yanagi, and a knife like this Iguchi, okay, by Wayne Watanabe, okay, single-sided hamaguri grind, can be considered a saber. It's a zero grind, okay. The Yanagi, it's a zero grind. This can be called a saber as well. Here's your shinogi and a zero grind. The original Cqc6 was like this, okay. The Cqc7, you had a high flat, and then here's your chisel grind, and then if you look very closely, there's a secondary bevel called the edge grind, okay? So Emerson's chisel grind is supposed to emulate the hamaguri of Japanese cutlery, but matter-of-factly, it doesn't. The Cqc7 970 by Benchmade, the Specwar, was 8 inches overall with a 3 1/4 inch tanto-style blade or chisel blade, okay, ground according to Emerson. It was bead blasted, okay. It was made with a tanto contoured tip, okay. Okay. It used an ambidextrous thumb disc instead of a stud that was held in place with a slotted screw. I don't know if you can see it, but that there is a slotted Phillips head 56 thread per inch cap screw and not a Torx screw. Okay. Okay. There was some file work. There was a file work thumb ramp like on the CQ7 of modern. Okay. That was for good grip. Okay. Okay. It gave you positive thumb traction. Okay. In the saber grip fighting style, which is here. Okay. Or in the gorilla grip fighting style. Okay. But it gave you some positive grip. Okay. Gave you some positive traction in the saber grip fighting style, which is very popular with the Filipino martial artist, is this saber grip. Okay. The blade was originally made out of ATS 34 Japanese steel, 5/8 thick. Okay. And Rockwell at 5860, which happens to be Benchmade's favorite Rockwell hardness for most of their blades, is 5860, because 5860 gives you a good balance between hardness and durability and ease of sharpening. Okay. The grips, okay, the grips back then with the Benchmade model were made with G10. G10 was developed by Westinghouse. The grips were G10 fiberglass at 0.125 inches thick. Okay. The frame slabs inside here, okay, were titanium at 0.125 inches thick. Okay. And the liner, the original liner, this piece here, the liner lock, okay, the liner lock, okay, was aerospace grade titanium at 50 thousandths. Okay. The Benchmade model held the entire knife together, okay, with Torx screws, not 56 thread per inch cap screws. Okay. The total weight was about 4 ounces, 3.6. We'll call it 4 ounces. Okay. The back of the original Specwar blade, okay, was marked Emerson Specwar model CQC7. It had a gun-blued pocket clip. It was tip-down carry only. Okay. It was secured in place by Torx screws. And it was made in the US of A because it was Benchmade, baby. Benchmade. But I want to make a note. Okay. A lot of people don't know the liner lock system on knives goes back a really long way in America. Okay. The liner lock system of knives goes back to about the 19th century. Okay. But there's been many significant improvements in the construction and execution of the modern liner lock. Okay. And just to let you know, Ernie Emerson didn't develop the liner lock for this knife. Okay. The modern liner lock design, okay, that came around in about the 80s is attributed to the custom knife maker named Michael Walker. He improved the liner lock from the old brass liner locks that you might see on a Schrade old-timer or other knives, okay, and improved its design with countersinking, texturization, and proper cutting angles to create friction between the anvil of the blade and the liner of the lock. Okay, so we're back, okay, and I still have the modern CQC7 here, okay, and I want to talk about some of Emerson's first collaborations, because prior to his collaborations, he was working out of his garage, okay. His first line of collaboration knives was called the Specwar series, okay. He called it Specwar long before his collaboration with Benchmade, okay. The first collaboration with a knife manufacturer that Ernest Emerson got involved with was with a company called Timberline Knives, okay. And that was back in 1993, and he got together with Timberline to create his Specwar line of knives, okay. And this was one of them, okay. There's a lot of information, good and bad, floating around about this early collaboration, and the way I am to understand it, since I've been in this business since 1980, okay, is that this particular collaboration between Emerson and Timberline Knives was the result of the Navy SEAL teams deciding basically that only commercially made designs would be considered to be carried and used due to a simple failure of previous custom knife makers having the ability to keep up with the demand of the SEAL team's requirements of having a knife like this, okay? Because let's face it, a custom guy custom knife maker can only bang out so many knives in a week, a month, a year to be used by special teams, plus everybody else that wants to order a knife. The commercial factories bang this stuff out with precision, hour after hour, day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year. So Ernest got together with Timberline to bang these puppies out because the demand by the military units like Navy SEALs and British SAS, it was going through the roof. Okay? But I can't quite verify that, but as long as I've been in this business, that is the story that's gone around. Okay? But it sounds right to me. Okay? Custom makers get backlogged, and that's the way it is. So Emerson was gearing his tactical folders toward military use, such as with Navy SEALs and Army Special Forces. And in the late 80s, the SEALs were buying and using custom fixed blade knives by a guy known as Phil Hartsfield. Now, some of you guys that are as old as I am, and I'm 50, will know who Phil Hartsfield is. Some of you younger guys coming up, you ain't gonna know who Phil Hartsfield is, okay? But at this time in history, the SEALs were buying and using the fixed blade knives that were being made by Phil Hartsfield, okay? Phil Hartsfield, he's most well known for his outstanding katanas. He made katanas out of retempered A2 tool steel. He also happened to possess a red sash from the Toro Dojo of Japan, and he was a qualified swordsmith. And, you know, with his katanas and fixed blades, they were made out of this the way he had a way of hard tempering A2 tool steel, okay? Hartsfield was the first maker, he was basically the first maker of note to use the now famous Tanto chisel design. Everybody thinks, whoa, Ernie Emerson, man. Ernie Emerson invented this chisel. Woohoo, this is an Ernie Emerson design blade. Okay, let me set you straight, okay? Ernie didn't know anything about this blade style, okay? He's an accomplished knife maker. He's an accomplished custom knife maker. But at this particular time in his career, he knew nothing of this style blade, okay? He knew nothing of it. And if he did, he wasn't making anything with it, okay? Hartsfield was the first maker of note to use this now famous chisel ground blade, okay? Hartsfield called them zero ground, and that's exactly what they were. They were zero ground, like this yanagi. You have your high flat, this delineation point called shinogi, okay, and your primary grind that went all the way to the bottom, okay, and is a zero grind. There is no secondary grind, and of course is perfectly flat on the back, such as this CQ7. Here's your high flat. This is your chisel grind, your primary, and if you look very closely, there's a secondary grind. Emerson calls this edge grind because that's what it is. And if you flip the knife over, it's flat on the back, just like the Japanese yanagi, okay? But this yanagi has a zero grind like the original CQC6. The CQC6 didn't incorporate this westernized secondary bevel or edge grind, as Ernie calls it, okay? Hartsfield was the first guy to promote and sell this style of blade without the secondary to the SEALs, okay? And he called them zero ground, okay? Now, supposedly, zero ground blades like this yanagi and zero ground blades like this Iguchi by Wayne Watanabe, okay, they don't suffer from something called drag when you cut, okay, as does knives that are ground in the V style. Well, I can tell you this right now, that when you have a knife that's flat on the back and that has a zero grind in the front, okay, a saber, okay, a chisel, whatever you want to call it, hamaguri is the correct word, hamaguri grind, that there is less drag with a single-sided edge than with a V grind having to push its way through something. I can attest to that, okay? It's called drag, and V ground knives do suffer from it, Okay. Emerson, he was so enamored with Phil Hartsfield. He was so enamored with Hartsfield's level of excellence in making knives that one day he asked Hartsfield for permission to use this style blade on his folding knives. And Hartsfield looked at him and said, yeah, go for it. So basically, Hartsfield gave Emerson his blessing to use this style blade, or basically this style blade, on his tactical folding knives, okay? Okay, with the popularity of the Hartsfield fixed blades, the Navy SEAL members eventually came to Hartsfield and asked if he would make a compact folding version of his chisel ground blades, okay? Zero ground, if he would make a folding version of his zero ground blades, his Hamaguri grind, if he would make a folding version for the SEAL teams. And guess what happened? Hartsfield said, I don't make folding knives, okay? Okay, I make fixed blade knives and I make swords, okay? So what did he do? Hartsfield told the Navy SEALs to go look up Ernest Emerson because he doesn't make fixed blade knives, okay? So he sent them to see Ernest Emerson. All right, let me tell you something, okay? Let me tell you something. I've been in this business 30 years. I've seen people come and go. I've seen manufacturers come and go. I've seen custom makers come and go. Let me tell you something, okay? When Phil Hartsfield told the Navy SEALs that he doesn't make folding knives, okay? He told them to go see Emerson, okay? That's the day that changed Ernest Emerson's life forever, okay? If Hartsfield made folders, Ernie would be flipping hamburgers in Omaha, okay? But Hartsfield said, go see Emerson, he makes folding knives. That was the best day in Ernest Emerson's life, and I hope every day he kisses the stone and thanks Phil Hartsfield for doing that, okay? It helped Ernest Emerson create what we call the modern military tactical folding knife. So the SEALs went to Emerson to discuss the requirements needed for the folding knife. And the Navy SEALs had some very particular requirements, okay? The knife had to be corrosion resistant. Well, that's not going to happen because no matter what kind of steel you use on a knife, if it gets wet and it gets exposed to the elements long enough, it's going to rust. Unless, of course, you were using Spyderco H1 steel, but H1 hadn't even been developed yet. But the Navy SEALs wanted the knife to be as corrosion resistant as possible, so Emerson put a black coating on the blade. Okay? And Benchmade put a black coating on the blade. But remember, no stainless is perfectly stainless. It all corrodes at one point or another. Okay? The knife had to be easy to clean in the field. Okay? And it had to be easy to disassemble in the field if you needed to do it. Well, the Cqc7 is nothing short, okay, of easy to clean because it's completely exposed. You can blow it out with your breath. You can rinse it out with water. It's easy to clean, okay? It's easy to clean, all right? It's also easy to disassemble if you want to disassemble it, but really, it's not necessary, okay? Along those lines, the knife had to have some tough specs. It had to be a compact weapon, and it had to be a daily working tool at the same time. Okay, so it had to be a weapon, and it had to be a working tool in the field for cutting chores, and it had to be good in close quarter fight. Okay, so it had to be good in many different grip styles. Okay, it had to be ergonomic. It had to be comfortable in the saber grip. Okay, it had to be comfortable in the reverse. It had to be comfortable in the reverse saber grip. It had to be comfortable in the gorilla grip forward. It had to be comfortable in the gorilla grip reverse. Okay? It also had to be comfortable in the inverted blade position, straight up. And the CQC7 met those demands. Okay? So, eventually, the knife that Emerson created was called the Viper series. And this knife happened to have been the 6th in the series that incorporated this Hartsfield style chisel tanto grade blade type. Okay, Emerson's protos were designated the Viper 6, okay? But not long after that, the Viper 6 was redesignated and called the Cqc6, and that was the knife built for the Navy SEALs. CQC, referring to close quarter combat. This knife, the Cqc6, for which I don't have one, because my buddy Warren over at Jackal Tactical had to go make a deal with a guy in California tonight, so I didn't have a Cqc6 to use. And that's cool, Warren, because when you get back to Vegas, you're going to be occupying a piece of the Nevada desert, okay? And don't worry about your wife and kids. They'll be well taken care of, if you know what I'm talking about, punk. But anyway, now Warren's a good guy. He's been a customer of mine for about 15 years. And the only other guy I know that knows more about Emerson knives and Emerson history is him. And if it wasn't for the fact that he had a lovely wife and kids, he would be occupying a piece of the Nevada desert. But we're going to let it slide, okay? So the CQC, referring to close quarter combat, this was the knife that was finally accepted by the Navy SEALs for use as their compact folding fighting knife. Okay. Eventually the CQC6 was being used by all types of military units. I'm sure some of the knives being sold, and of course some of the knives being given away as a matter of good marketing, because all great manufacturers of knives and all great custom makers of knives have given their knives away to military units and tactical teams in return for great stellar reviews and possibility of articles. It's all marketing, man. I mean, believe me, it's all marketing, okay? Okay. All the great makers have done it. All the great manufacturers have done it, okay? So Emerson got his knives to be used by Navy SEALs, British SAS, Special Air Service, tough bunch of dudes. The GSG-9 of Germany, and some Army Rangers, okay? So he was getting it out into military use, and at the same time he was getting it out into the mainstream. All right, guys, I know you're sitting here looking at a knife, and I hate doing these kind of reviews where all you see is the knife and the hands. You don't need to see my face, but hopefully I'm offering you some really good information. So we're going to continue on. In 1990, because of Emerson's relationship with the military community, okay, he changed the name of his knife line to Specwar, okay? Now, he called it Specwar with Timberline, but he officially decided to change the name of his knife line to Specwar, okay? Other CQC models followed from the fucking CQC6, okay? The CQ7, the CQC8, and the CQC9, which was called the Eagle knife. It had a reverse curved hawk bill, okay? And it was designed and developed as a backup weapon for law enforcement agencies. You don't see it very often, and if you do, they're worth a fortune, okay? It used the Spyderco opening hole. It was developed as a backup weapon for law enforcement agencies, and it used the Spyderco opening hole that was licensed to Emerson from Spyderco's own Sal Glesser, another great designer of tactical one-hand opening knives, okay? The CQC series of knives holds the distinction of being the first folding knives that were designed to be ergonomically correct in multiple positions, like I've shown you before. The Gorilla Grip forward, the Gorilla Grip reverse, the Saber Grip forward, the Saber Grip reverse, okay, and the inverted blade. Now, a lot of people don't train with this inverted blade, with the blade up, okay? A lot of people don't learn how to use this style of blade fighting, okay? And let me tell you something. It's a big mistake, okay? It's a really big mistake, all right? Because way back around 1879, 1881 or so, okay, a tiny little guy named Doc Holliday, who was all of about 150 pounds dripping wet, okay, was accused of cheating at cards, okay, in a bar. Okay, the Doc Holliday, like I said, was about 150 pounds dripping wet. He smoked, he drank, and he had tuberculosis at a time in history when you couldn't cure tuberculosis. And he stabbed a man using a knife that was about 3 to 4 inches long. Okay, he stabbed a man using a knife about 3 to 4 inches long. He held it in the inverted blade position, blade up, and he stabbed a man who outweighed him by at least 50 pounds minimum and in good physical condition. All right? And he cut that man open from the pelvis to the sternum with an inverted blade, going through clothing, going through fat, going through muscle. A skinny little skis of a 150-pound man with a 3.5 or 4-inch blade. And people don't train with this style of inverted blade technique. Better wake up. Okay? Better wake up. Okay? So the CQ line had to be ergonomically comfortable in the blade up as well as blade down positions. And this particular model knife, many of the users of the CQC knife called it the best fighting knife ever designed and they had ever used. You know, I'll debate that, okay? I've had lots of folding knives. I currently have probably 400 knives in my collection. All kinds of folding knives, practical, tactical, military. I don't know if I would call the Cqc7 the best folding fighting knife ever designed or ever used, but it's decent. I can think of other knives. I don't totally agree with the statement. Okay, the best knife ever designed, because in my opinion, I feel that this was done because of marketing. Okay, called it, you know, people call it the best folding fighting knife. In my opinion, that's done because of marketing. All right, there have been lots of great tactical fighting knives, folding and fixed. My personal favorite happens to be a kukri or a parang, but that's besides the fact. Okay, okay. While Emerson was not the first knife maker to build what is known as the tactical folding knife, okay, Emerson was one of several knife makers who popularized the concept of the handmade tactical folder, okay, back in the 80s. I'll say again, though, that Emerson's CQC6 and CQC7 knives did, however, pave the way for the look and feel of the modern tactical fighting knife folder. And this look and feel has been copied by so many, it's just ridiculous. I'll attribute Ernest Emerson as being the forefather, okay, of this modern military look and feel in tactical one-handed knives. Like Ernest Emerson says in his philosophy, it doesn't matter if the design is old or new. The fact of the matter is that a design is a good design whether it's old or new, period. Okay? It was such a good design that Richard Marcinko, who happens to be the founder of the United States Navy's now famous SEAL Team 6 and author of the now famous Rogue Warrior series of novels, started using Emerson's knives in his novels. Okay? They began appearing in the Rogue Warrior series, which I'm sure helped boost the popularity and exposure for both gentlemen, you know, and helping to fuel the interest in the knife to collectors that were just beginning to collect this new military and tactical style look in knives. Okay? Emerson's knives also began being seen on television shows like the old Navy SEALs television show back in the late 90s. Okay? The scripts were written and the actors were purposely using phrases like "get out your Emerson knife" and "get in your Emerson fighting stance." Okay? I think this was done as part of the agreement between Emerson and the studios for Emerson supplying versions of the knife, the Cqc7, in return for showing the knives prominently and prominently using certain phrases associated with the knife, like "get in your Emerson fighting stance." This was just more smart marketing by Ernest Emerson, and his folders kept on gaining in popularity. Okay, in my opinion, it helped to take the knives to a bigger, it helped get the knives to take a bigger hold in the consumer marketplace for one-handed tactical folders. In my opinion, Ernest Emerson is a master marketer, or he hires master marketers, okay? But he certainly knew something of what he was doing, which is this knife. This review brings us to the modern Emerson CQ7 review, okay? The CQC7 from Emerson Knives is still by far the quintessential design that started the military tactical folder movement, okay, in the cutlery industry. Emerson Knives and his customs are some of the most sought after folding knives of all time. Okay, it's this razor sharp chisel ground knife that has become the standard by which many other one-hand tactical knives are now judged. Okay, his designs are some of the designs that revolutionized this entire cutlery industry. Okay, every knife company has their version of this knife out there, but they all basically fall really short when compared to the real deal of this particular kind of knife. Okay, the Cqc7 has a black or satin finish blade, partially serrated. Okay, it comes in either a tanto or a drop point with the chisel grind, blackened, partially serrated. Your basic specs: overall length is 8 inches. The blade length is about 3.3 inches. Today the steel is crucible made 154 cm, rock welded basically 57 to 59 for ease of sharpening. The blade thickness of this blade here at the spine is 5/8 of an inch. The blade edge is Emerson's chisel, and once again I will go over it again. This is not a true quote-unquote chisel. This blade is a westernized chisel, okay? And what I'm talking about is here, this is your high flat, and then here, this is your chisel, and if you look very close, you will find an edge grind, okay? And Emerson even talks about that in some of his interviews, okay? But this is not a true quote-unquote chisel, nor is it a quote-unquote zero grind like this Yanagi. Okay, this Yanagi has a high flat, a shinogi, okay, and a chisel grind all the way to the bottom, which is zero, no micro bevel, no westernized edge grind. That is a true quote-unquote chisel or hamaguri grind. Just as with this Iguchi by Wayne Watanabe, here's your high flat, and your grind here is a total zero grind all the way to the bottom, hamaguri, no edge grind. The Emerson, on the other hand, has a very slight chisel grind here and a westernized edge grind. So it's not a true hamaguri, okay? It's not a true hamaguri, okay? As I said, it's available in a tanto, it's available in a drop point chisel, okay? Comes with either a plain edge, partially serrated, either black or satin. The basic hand length is 4.65 inches long. The lock, okay, the lock is aerospace grade titanium at 60 thousandths thick, okay? 60 thousandths of an inch thick, okay? The pre-2007 liners were only 50 thousandths thick, okay? Okay, the frame of the knife, the liner lock side here is aerospace titanium, okay? The other side of the frame here today is now 300 series stainless steel as of 2008. Prior to 2008, the right side of the frame was still aerospace titanium, and I think that he got rid of the titanium on this side to save money and replaced it with the 300 series stainless. Okay, the stainless here is going to be heavier than the titanium, but it's also going to be cheaper. Your average weight, 3.8 ounces, roughly 4 ounces. Okay, the knife features G10 slabs developed by Westinghouse. They're 0.125 thick. It's basically used because G10 is basically impervious to most solvents. Okay, the G10 slabs are held in place, okay, by two 56 thread stainless steel slat head cap screws and not Torx. Okay, so basically it's a fairly simple knife, very well built, simply built. So now what I want to basically talk about is some pros and cons to this knife. Okay, in my opinion, the chisel grind of the CQC7 is Emerson's signature blade style. This blade style here, okay? For those that are unfamiliar with the blade type, it is as it sounds, okay? It is supposed to be a chisel, like this Yanagi, like I've shown you many times before, okay? But basically what it is a high flat, a chisel grind, and then an edge grind, okay? It's supposed to cut like a chisel, but it really doesn't, okay? It is flat on one side, like the Yanagi, okay? Okay. Emerson states that his reason for using this blade type is that it's easier to sharpen. And to tell you the truth, I don't agree with this statement. Emerson says, in the field, one can't always carry sharpening gear, so he made the blade capable of being sharpened in the field on almost anything, like a piece of pipe or another piece of steel. I don't agree with this either. I don't agree with that statement. If you carry a tool into the field, then you need to take something, anything, to keep it sharp, especially if you're going to be out in the field for prolonged periods of time. I mean, let's face it, don't soldiers carry extra clips full of bullets to reload a firearm? Of course they do. So why not carry some kind of a tool to sharpen your knife? I have sharpening implements that weigh an ounce or less that I can carry with me out in the field for prolonged periods of time to sharpen knives like this, okay? Emerson says you can sharpen his grinds on something like a piece of pipe or another piece of steel. Well, to tell you the truth, I can do that with an edge like this or a V grind. Any edge I can touch up on a piece of pipe, a piece of glass, or another piece of steel. So there's nothing special about his edge grind, okay? You can do that with any kind of knife grind, okay? One issue with the chisel grind is it's hard to get a straight cut, okay? If you read any of the reviews of guys that have done cut tests with this particular blade style, when they cut, the knife drags to one side or the other, whereas with a V grind, it cuts right down the center. So is this an effective cutting edge? I don't think so. Is it an effective stabbing grind? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, okay? But you can't get a straight cut out of it. The blade tends to drift toward the chisel side of the knife. So if you're going to use this knife for long and precise cuts, you might want to consider working with a V grind knife, okay? Let's talk about some other pros and cons. Is the CQC7 well built? Yeah, it's well built. Is the CQC7 a good EDC? That's questionable. Is it a good EDC for the average Joe? Absolutely not. Okay, no way. Okay, it's limited in scope of use. Okay, is the CQC7 a good EDC for military personnel, law enforcement? Yeah. They're not working with it the same way a guy would work with a knife in a camping or hiking expedition kind of way. So, yeah, for military and police personnel, fine. Yeah, it's good. Okay? Is the CQC7 made out of quality materials? Yeah, for the most part it is. CM154 steel, Westinghouse G10, aerospace grade titanium. Yeah, it's made out of decent materials, okay? The price, well, you know, to tell you what, the full MSRP on a CQC7 is $193.95, and is that a decent price for this knife? No. As a matter of fact, I think that price, full MSRP, is too high for this knife. I can buy knives by other manufacturers, Benchmade, Kershaw, Spyderco, okay, for less money with tougher lockups, okay, tougher locking mechanisms and better steels than this CQC7. So is a CQC7 high priced? Oh yeah. Would I spend $193.95 on this knife? No, absolutely not. Too high. There are better knives out there for the same or less money. Is it the #1 hard use knife in the world? No, not even close. Okay, not even close, not even by a long shot. I've been in this business since 1980, and if I think that this is the #1 hard use knife in the world, I shouldn't even be in the cutlery business. Is it the #1 hard use knife in the world? No way, not even close. I could ramble off 24 other knives out there by other manufacturers or custom makers that I think are harder use than this knife. But that's only my opinion. You know, some people might agree with it, some people might not agree with it. But this is my first review. This is my review on the Emerson CQC7 with a little bit of tidbits for the CQC6 and some history. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you on my next video. I might be doing some flashlight reviews on my next video. So I hope to see you here. Take care.